Hi, and welcome to another serving of Potluck Politics. I'm Peter Roper, and tonight we're lucky to have someone who's been a frequent guest on our program before we all went underground and had to stay in our own homes. Joe Dela Cruz, who's our state rep from the 41st District, covers southern part of Groton and southern part of New London, I believe. Joe, it's nice to have you here, and we'd like to talk to you a little bit about what's been going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm missing being in studio, but this is the best we can do right now. It's good. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. Yep. We got a lot to cover, so we'll start right in. We're still kind of in the midst of a pandemic, which is kind of the biggest news. Have you and your family been safe, and how have you been handling the pandemic?
Fortunately, nobody in my family has tested positive for COVID. I have a very large family too, so that's something to be said for that. 24 first cousins and a lot of other scattered folks around, but we've been safe and handling it wise. My wife and I have been pretty active. I don't know if you've seen us on Smile Live, but we've actually reached out to even elderly neighbors, done some shopping for folks. And it seems like folks are starting to get back in the swing of things, and a lot of folks are taking care of themselves, but we're still making sure the elderly folks, if they can, stay out of the stores as much as possible. But overall, our family's been very, very safe and very lucky to this point.
Great. It's been kind of a big deal, obviously, and the rest, some of the other parts of the state did worse than we did, and some particular communities have done worse. But we also have been fortunate. Terri's sister in Illinois got it, and our nephew got it, but they did pretty well considering. How do you feel about the governor's response, Governor Lamont?
I actually couldn't be happier, and I think from the outside looking in, a lot of folks are concerned that it looks like, with all these executive decisions, that it may look like that the legislature is not involved, but we are. Both Republicans and Democrats. We've done more Zoom meetings probably than we would have done regular meetings because of the urgency of the situation. And to know that we have a governor that believes in science, that follows the science, that's making really tough decisions, and you get beat up for it once in a while. But I think we can see the difference from state to state of who's doing the proper things and who isn't. And we're seeing it happen now, play out in real time, where I think they've opened up some things too early in other states, and we're seeing big pop-ups there. And to have the fortitude to be able to make those decisions. Remember, the governor, when he makes an executive order, he's making decisions for 3.5 million people. And obviously there's going to be folks that aren't happy. But in the ultimate end, I think he's making some really good decisions, and so happy that he's not. If you look, you can look down as close as Georgia and see, a governor that just found out that it was communicable by people who were asymptomatic, and he just found that out about a month ago. So, feeling very fortunate that Ned Lamont is our governor right
now. Yeah. To me, it seems like he has a heart and he has a brain, and that's a good combination, as you know.
Tough to come by too.
It's rarer than we'd like. And that leads me, what do you think about the national response? The national
disappointed to say the very least. I think, when you're the leader of the free world, and you even the vice president, who is the czar, and basically goes to all the meetings and has all the information from the top of the top experts, and to walk around and visit factories with no mask is flies in the face of science. It sends a mixed message. That's one of many mixed messages coming out of the White House. But it has been, to me, a total disaster at the state, at the federal level, and to see the states come together and actually bind together to respond. So, something that should have been a federal response and coordinated with them. Now it seems like, even though we've been fighting against this huge current coming from Washington, to see, what we've done locally, it makes me more proud, knowing the leadership that we have, and not just in Connecticut, but it seems like in our New England and tri-state area, where we've really banded together, and unfortunately had to. But I could talk about that response the whole night and take the whole half hour. But basically, I would just tell you that a very, extremely disappointed with the federal response.
Yeah. As far as you're concerned, what do you think is the best thing about this coronavirus? The time we spent, basically.
I mean, there's been some reflection time where folks at home can start, thinking about what's important to them, what's not. I think even what's happening now with the movement, watching, we obviously saw racism come to a boil. It's always been there. I think the fact that we've been locked up for months ahead of time, basically in our own homes, has even made it, the boiling point was even worse now because a lot of people have been home and they've been stuck at home, and to see how we reacted. To me, I think the positive I saw was people reaching out to each other. Tammy and I weren't the only neighbors that were reaching out to elderly folks. The job I work at, we provided nose strips, and it started at the smallest of ways that it could have started. Tammy had a friend that worked at the hospital that wanted to make masks for people, and that she needed the metal. And the fact that we stepped up and just put it on Facebook and then mailed out over 3,000 packages, and getting the feedback from people that was so appreciative that they were getting them for free, but us knowing that we were giving them people that were handing them to somebody that was scared, that didn't have a mask, and was, a first responder. These cloth masks ended up going on people in ambulances, which is crazy to think, but to see the spirit of the American people, and to know that we still manufacture here and just not in just Connecticut, but in this whole country. There's a lot of things that I think we learned. Sometimes they say things happen for a reason, and maybe we needed to step back as a country and find out what was important and what isn't important. And I think we're getting a little taste of that now. And I think it was, obviously we wish we didn't have to go through it at all, but if we're going to learn anything, we learned some good lessons.
Yeah, your point about American made is important, because I think that, we've lost a huge, I guess, leadership role, and also the ability to make things. And when you can't get ventilators and you can't get masks and you can't get the major stuff that you need when people are dying, that's kind of a wake-up call. And I hope we learn something from this in that regard. And I do appreciate you stepping up.
Oh, no. And the tipping point to me is, I always just assumed pharmaceuticals were very, very expensive because it was done all in America. And we're finding out now that, we don't even make penicillin in this country anymore.
Right.
So the PPE was one thing, but imagine if it was an antidote that we had access and we knew how to put it together, but we didn't have the ability to make it here because we didn't make it here. Yeah. To me, those kind of things scare me. And we all know that it's a global economy and not everything's going to be made in America, but those vital things like PPE, like pharmaceuticals, certain things, maybe we really need to start thinking about where those are made. And again, what's important to us. Because again, we can say the cheapest way out is the best way because we make more money. But in the end, we find out if we can't provide ourselves with life-saving material when we need it, does it really matter how much it costs? And we're finding out that we'd be willing to spend anything at this point if we knew it would protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Yeah, testing's a good example. We didn't have the testing we should have. Even now, we may not have the testing we should be doing, but we can't spend all our time on that, unfortunately. No. I want to hear a little bit about what the legislature has been doing. I know it's been tough, and you mentioned that you've had a lot of meetings, Zoom and otherwise. So give me a little bit of what's going on and how you're coping, how everybody's coping with that.
So a lot of it ended up, obviously, I remember when we first closed up and they said we weren't going back. That last day, people were saying, well, can't we pass this bill? Can we? I'm almost done. And, these legislators, some of these bills have taken 5, 6, 7 years to get to the point where they were going to get to the floor and the Republicans and Democrats were going to get together and vote on something and pass a bill. And the frustration level was high. And I remember thinking that it was such a big deal. And then we see the world shut down. We see, NBA go out and the MLB is not playing and we're not voting on anything. And I think from the outside looking, a lot of people think that nothing is happening, but the Zoom meetings have been very important. I got to tell you, most of it has not been, 99% of it has been about COVID and now actually about the response that Connecticut is going to have to the racism that's exploded across our country. And again, the boiling point, the people do own the government. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And when you see this many people, especially the youth, coming out and marching against something, it's time for us to act. And do I know what that bill looks like? I know we're behind the scenes crafting, I'm part of it. They'll ask me where I stand, because they want to make sure when we get the votes that it is bipartisan, that we get a lot of people to sign on to it, because it is so important. And those are the two things we're really working on. So it would be COVID as the number one thing. Most of the legislative stuff I've been working on, or constituent wise, has been unemployment. We saw now, when you ask what did COVID reveal? COVID revealed to us that our systems and computer systems between the DMV and unemployment are inadequate, insufficient, and they need to be fixed and upgraded. And that's another point that Lamont has made from the day he ran. He's appalled at our technology level. The biggest part of the unemployment snafu was the federal government gave us 600, which meant a lot of people would be getting more than 1,000, and our computers didn't recognize a fourth digit. to be able to imagine that that's where we are as a state. So we know that, and again, it all comes down to investment. And for years and years, we kept talking about how budget is most important, but sometimes you're throwing money away because you're not spending money, and that means not have a computer system that counts 4 digits. To me, is just a waste of money.
Yeah. On the last thing, which you just talked about, is Mitch McConnell doesn't care if the states file for bankruptcy, and that's just Mitch McConnell as usual. But how are we going to deal with the budget? Because the income hasn't been there, the sales tax, and the expenses have been skyrocketing. Are we going to be able to make this work? Is the federal government going to step up, do you think?
I think the federal government's going to have to, but I also think the rainy day fund that this last legislature protected. There was a lot of talk about how we raise money for the transportation infrastructure, and there were folks that wanted to completely deplete our rainy day fund. Fortunately, it looks like that rainy day fund is going to carry us through this. We don't know the end results or the receipts yet, but we do know that we had a $3 billion surplus, and that's going to help us get through. Connecticut is ranked number 7 for being able to get through this pandemic, not unscathed, because we know obviously we're going to have a lot of work to do, but the budget actually, the surplus is going to carry us through a lot of that. So I'm excited to be part of a legislature that was responsible enough to put that money aside and not spend it.
Mm-hmm. You touched on Black Lives Matter, and I was really impressed with the people coming together in Mystic for a week. Rise Up Mystic actually organized, I think some people suggested, Rise Up Mystic sponsored it in Mystic. We went down and beeped our horn. It was too close for us, but a lot of mixed groups, young girls, older people, some of our old friends who have been involved in a lot of these issues. It was really heartening. And then they had the thing at the Pequannock Plains Park, and then walked over to the municipal building. I think you were involved in that. And to me, that was really impressive. And I think there is some hope now that enough people are coming together, because it's gotten so bad, that maybe we'll be able to do something about the really root problem of racism.
I think, and it's going to be the energy of the youth that push us through and ultimately gets over the top. I think what happens to us when we get a little older and long in the tooth, we think things can't get done. We just, we get in this habit of saying there's no way we could get where you want us to be. And the youth doesn't understand that concept. They think that.
I don't think you and I think that way, Joe, but you're right. you can get worn out and cynical, but we try not to be that way, right?
We absolutely. I feel like I'm the most optimistic person in the world, but there's times when I say, well, this is the world we live in, and we're just going to have to navigate it in this manner. And I think the youth are speaking out saying, no, we don't. We don't have to live like this, and we can get past this. And, I'm part of a generation that I've never experienced what's happening now. I've never been to a rally that was that big or that impassioned. I grew up in the 70s after the wars were kind of all over. I'm not a Vietnam era kid, so I didn't remember being, me and my friends have never protested. When I was 18 to 28, there was nothing got our juices flowing like these kids are going now. And I really commend them, because they don't have to be involved either. that, like you mentioned, the different nationalities and colors in Groton, I would say it was 50% white, and then Caucasian and then Hispanic and Black and a bunch of different races on the other side. But there were a lot of people, and the fact that an 18-year-old kid took that kind of time, and it was a lot of time. They started at, I was down at that field at 11:30, and they didn't come back. I mean, we watched down and with them, and I came back, but it was 4 or 5 o'clock when they were done. And they took their time walking, and they kneeled and showed respect in a bunch of different times. So the energy to me, like you saw what I saw, that those kids are the future, and they're not just the future; they're the present.
Yeah, it's encouraging. It's sad that we have to do this, but I'm glad that people are stepping up. And talk to me a little bit about what you think could happen in the state as far as addressing systemic racism, and what can the state do you think?
The state can do a lot. I mean, I think the one thing that I want to make sure that, and I've said this on my own videos. I actually got up on stage, and it wasn't a popular thing because that I spoke at the municipal building, and I was talking about how police actually in our area have been good, that they have done the right things in a lot of different ways, and that I think most people still want to support the police. And I see the defunding signs and all these other, the push to, and I will tell you this much, I'm a Democrat too, and I think if the mantra for the Democratic Party is going to be defund the police, I actually think we have 4 more years of what we have in Washington. I think it's going to be very difficult to jump that hurdle of defunding the police. I don't think we need to. I think what we need to do is maybe go and meet with the police more and speak with them about how to get better. And I think before, because of all the history we have, and it seems like it's never getting better, it seems impossible. The work that we've done with police just in this town on addiction tells me that they want to be part of the solution. I heard from the chiefs first when all this stuff happened at the very beginning. The chiefs were saying, "Look, this is going to be pretty big. What can we do? How can we become part of the community where they feel like we're moving forward?" So they're trying to reach out, through me to the community. And I think the community just needs to put their hands up and open their arms and listen to what they have to say, because it is a job that has to be done. And I think we have to work on that. But there's also legislatively, there's certain things we can do. There's a accountability bill that we've been hearing a lot about. And I think that's going to come up where you're not completely immune as a police officer, where you don't, there's no possibility for you to get sued. They're talking about what that looks like, and it sounds like a really easy bill, but if you're going to lure people into basically a job, I'm a sheet metal worker. If I went in as an apprentice and they said, "Hey, there's a high probability that you're going to be sued, 2 or 3 times a year, Joe, and just make sure you're prepared for that." I don't know how we recruit people into that trade. So there's a lot of different, and that's what I learned about too. You get in politics, some things that sound so simple have a lot of things attached to them when you start, you know what I mean? It's just one of those, there's nuances. You make a law and say the law is, okay, police aren't immune anymore. Do we have one applicant to be a cop in the next 2 years? Because a lot of people, they don't want to go through lawsuit after lawsuit, and the cops do get sued a lot. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you. Defunding the police is not the right term. I think some police departments may need to be, started from scratch. They start over, but in generally, just taking money out of the police department is not going to make it better, I don't think. But I think we have to be smart and support good people and support good policies and make sure that there's some oversight. I think citizen oversight is probably important too. And I don't know if that's something.
Well, I actually, and I'm working. Well, I've been speaking with the chiefs. We have each other's number and we talk about these things, and throwing a bill out that I had proposed through the Black and Latino caucus. This is something that personally I think would help. Have an advisory board that, again, we keep thinking, when we think of police and how we get sensitivity training, it's a police officer teaching other police officers how to be sensitive to a certain community. Doesn't really work. It's always, if I want to learn how to fish, I don't want to talk about the guy that built the boat for the fishermen. I want to go talk to the fishermen. You know, that was great. The guy built the boat, but I want to go talk to the guy that's putting the lines in the water. I want to learn how to fish. And I think the way we do that is to have community organizations set a curriculum. And the curriculum wouldn't be a book in paper and that you sit down and go through something and sign after you're done with it. It would be maybe the police officer in their normal work week, so we're not expanding the police budget, maybe 3 times a year that they go to a curriculum that a community group sets. And if part of that community group is, maybe someone that maybe one day it's an event that happens at a Muslim church, and they get to see the culture of Muslim people. And then there's a Jewish one, and then there's all these different things. Maybe one day they have to go to a picnic that Community Speaks Out throws on, and it's about drug addiction and how we deal with it in the community. Hands-on, real community learning and not book work. And I think a lot of times, I can't tell you, especially as a legislator, the things I used to not go to, the little events that happen all over the place. They have a police day, a police recognition dinner at the Elks Club. I had never gone to that before. I'm an Elks member. And to go to that and see, the camaraderie that happens at something like that, or then to even go to the graduation for people that graduated adult education. I had never gone to one of those before. I've been to 3 of them now. And I don't want to miss another one in my life, because even though I'm not a representative, I think it's really cool when the community comes out and supports people that kind of went over some obstacles. So that's one of my bills that I want to plan. And it sounds like both police chiefs were kind of on board with it, where before they might have said, well, we don't have the money. I think all these protests are starting to light the fire, where we got to start throwing some things against the wall and figure out what can work.
Yeah. Good. I want to cut a few more things before we get done here. We're running out of time as usual.
Of course.
Early voting and voting by mail. Just briefly tell us what's happening and how we're going to be able to vote safely in the fall when we may have the pandemic coming back.
I can tell you it's probably the most important thing that we could do is get that straight. I know by executive order, the governor is making it so that we can vote in the primaries with absentee, and he's getting a lot of pushback. And again, when everyone, if we're following the lead from Washington, D.C., that it's completely rigged and mailing doesn't work, the only problem is, and the reason that doesn't really make sense, is we're only trying to be like Alabama and Texas and Arkansas. Like we think that Connecticut's progressive, and really we're way behind. I mean, we live in a society now, a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week society, where folks leave for work at 6 a.m. and come back at 8 p.m. That completely puts them out of the realm of being able to vote. Voting should be easy. Voting should be handed to you on a silver platter.
I was going to bring that up. That's a quote from our state senator, Heather Summers, which I was disgusted by when she acts like we can't make it too easy to vote. We should be making it very easy to vote. That's what democracy is about.
Yep. I think really. And I'm hoping she regrets what she said there, because I think sometimes you say things, and as soon as you say them, hopefully she can come out and retract that. But because it should be the easiest thing to do. We make, DMV is hard. We know all these systems in our way that are difficult. But voting should be the easiest thing that we do. There should be no obstacle. You shouldn't have to pay to vote. And certainly, I've been on the front lines making sure people that got felonies that were arrested, that they can vote, because they're part of our society. And the most important thing they can do is vote. We need to have no excuse absentee ballot voting, and that should be done. But there's a mountain to climb, because it's in our Constitution. So we need to dig into that and get that fixed and make sure everyone in Connecticut's voting.
Yeah, it's really important. So I'm glad you're working on it. Quick update on the 18th District Senate race. Bob Statch, I know, is running again.
He is, and
he's busy working for us because he's. I
got to tell you, Bob, I watched him last year, and the amount of time and effort it takes to run for a state Senate seat. I'm a state representative. I got 2 towns to worry about. It's an enormous amount of work.
Huge district, really.
Oh, it's huge. And the fact that you are full-time still working, and Bob is, Bob's a full-time guy, to be able to do all that and have his family stick behind him the way they have, and to have his daughter come out and really challenge him and say, Dad, you need to do this again. And really, I thank him every time I see him, because you to put your name out there anyway. I know what it feels like to do that. I don't know what it feels like to do it on the level that he's doing it on, because obviously the scrutiny is bigger if you're running for Senate. But the fact that Bob is out there doing his National Guard duty, and I know where his heart is. And again, I'm not, I'm friends with Heather. I'm friends with the current senator. But being friends with someone and political views are two different things. And I know Bob supports the same things I do. And I tell folks, I fought for minimum wage. I'm fighting for the paid family leave. And we did that. We've accomplished some things that are incredible that I thought that we may never be able to do. And after my first term, and I know if we have more people in there like Bob, I know we can keep moving forward and not backwards. I keep hearing from the other side how they keep telling us that, Connecticut's the worst place in the union. 49th out of 50. They throw all these numbers on about taxes and random things, but they always forget to mention that we're like number 6 in education. Quality of life is in the top 10, and which means more people have access to healthcare than most states. And if you're gonna grade our state by how rich people are, then it's going to be far short of what we want and what Bob is fighting for. So obviously you guys can tell that I'm a huge Bob fan.
Yeah.
But
I like him a lot.
And he's in a difficult spot. We have COVID. He can't knock on doors. People hate when you call him at home.
Yeah, you should explain. He's actually working in the National Guard. He's on duty,
So
working
Bob
in this district, helping make sure people get what they need.
So if you're out there and you're thinking about who to vote for and you're watching this program, don't think Bob Stachen's not contacting you because he's lazy. Bob Stachen's, he is, statutorily cannot reach out to voters because he has been pulled in to the National Guard full time. So he can't campaign simultaneously while serving the country in uniform. And it looks like he's about to get released from that duty soon. It looks like all the troops will be getting released from that duty very soon. So just know, if you haven't heard from Bob, there's a reason for it. And I would say probably the most respectable reason we could think of. He's serving our country in uniform. So, but look for Bob to be very, very out there once he's released and able to come back.
Yeah. We're getting down to the end. Actually, you're running for re-election, right?
I am. Yep. And I didn't think I had an opponent, so I didn't raise any. I'm about $3,000 out of the $5,000 I need. And we didn't want to ask folks for money because if I wasn't going to have an opponent, I didn't want to take money from people that I know needed it. But we are going to start making phone calls again. My wife just started today. We're going to get ourselves so we get qualified. And, and there was an opponent that was announced. So I just need to make sure that I have my ducks in a row, and that if I'm going to represent this town in this area, make sure that, I do my best to win, so I can go back there and represent you the same way I have these last few years. So like I said, again, so you may get a phone call from me. If you're watching the show, you're probably going to hear from me soon.
Good. As always, it is great to talk to you and hear what you're working on. I appreciate your efforts. You've always got a good perspective on our neighborhood and our state. There's a lot going on, and I'm glad you're there to look out for our interests. Keep up the good work. We'll be talking to you again, hopefully under better circumstances. We can be in the same room, which would be nice.
It would.
Good luck in the coming months at the legislature with your family. Good luck with the election. Thank you for coming, Representative Joe Dela Cruz, the 41st District in Groton and London. And to all of you, please stay safe, be well, and remember November.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.